Thank you everyone for registering for our webinar, Taking It Outside, Best Practices for Exterior Maintenance. I'm your moderator, Kathleen Misovic. I am the managing editor of CMM. Helping me today is Martha Schmidt. She is our ISSA virtual events producer, and also Elizabeth Christensen, the CMM editor. She will be popping in and you will see her later in the webinar, and she will be helping us with our questions. Before we get started, make sure that you interact. This is a webinar, which is an opportunity for you. So go ahead and put in your questions and concerns in the Q&A or chat features. You can make as much noise as you want because you are muted. And if you miss anything, you receive a copy of the entire webinar later on. And now for our sponsor. This webinar is brought to you by Sunbelt Rentals. Sunbelt Rentals is a leading equipment rental company and the largest indoor and outdoor surface maintenance provider. Whether it's hardwood, carpet, turf, grass, pavement, or concrete, Sunbelt's highly trained experts deliver the innovative solutions you need to get the job done right. Overcome the challenges of your environment's demands with Sunbelt's flexible daily, weekly, monthly, and long-term rental options. Visit their website at sunbeltrentals.com to learn more. Please welcome today's panelists, Sarah Lamp, Sales and Account Manager for DMS Facility Services. Sarah, can you take just a minute to tell us who some of your clients are?
Sure. So DMS works with a variety of clients, from single tenant to multi-tenant property managers. We do a lot of facilities that are corporate campuses. We work in the entertainment industry. We work, again, in that real estate market. And we also do educational facilities, and the list of customers is definitely very vast.
All right, and we also have Marcelo Saba, who is Senior Director of Housekeeping at Hard Rock Stadium. Marcelo, I think you said that you are known more than for football at the stadium. So
that's correct, Marcelo Saba. We also cover for Hard Rock Stadium. We have 3 buildings in our facility. We also have Miami Open Grand Prix paddock club that they've built, about 200,000 square feet. We also run about, say, a block away, the facility where the team is located. It's called the Baptist Training Facility, where the team practices and runs all their daily functions. And that's another building, approximately another 100,000 square feet. Our property overall is about 9 million square feet. We handle all the parking lots and the nearby locations in the community as well. We practice between different sports. We got tennis, we got the Grand Prix, we have the soccer, football. We used to have baseball. Currently we are dealing with some new projects that are in the making from the organization, which will be coming out soon. It's very exciting. And we cover everything between landscaping, roof cleaning, facades, and in and out of the stadium.
Great. All right. So we can get started to the meat. So one big issue that comes up, window washing. If everyone in the webinar wants to let us know whether that's something you do yourself or contract, and I'll ask the panelists. Sarah, you have a special group to do window washing?
Yeah, we definitely do. We have our own internal windows division. And so we have a very large windows division in our LA market as well as in our San Diego market. It's definitely a specialized services. Not a lot of facility companies will have their own internal team to do that. And DMS is one of those.
Okay. And Marcelo?
Similar to Sarah, she probably covers a lot more space than we do, but we have some more half internally we done, and some we outsource some of the higher needed scaffold or repellent locations to be done. Besides the window cleaning, we also do a lot of the ribbon boards and LED boards cleaning as well, similar to that.
Great. All right, moving on. So what would you say, we'll start with you, Marcelo, are the biggest window washing challenges you have and how you overcome them, including any risks?
Us being out here in Florida, the biggest challenge is the heat. A lot of the pest issues are according to the location we are in that affects the windows. We are not too far from the ocean here, so we also get a lot of salt water, and that's a little bit of a challenge as well. Dealing with some of the higher situation areas, we have to utilize we outsource it to a vendor, and they have some challenges. We've been under construction for a couple of years, and usually construction window cleaning is a lot tougher than the regular maintenance that we do every periodically.
Okay, and Sarah, what are some of the challenges you have?
Because it is a skilled labor, but versus something more like landscaping or janitorial services, we've had some labor issues, especially more recently. Way we've kind of combated that is we've had to increase our pay wages by about 25%. Especially like Marcelo was talking, once you get above a certain height, that is especially skilled. And so because our crews are mainly doing those, larger facilities where we are looking at roof equipment versus being able to do something from the ground floor, we need to make sure that we're able to provide highly skilled people to do that work. Some of the other challenges that we have are with OSHA compliance and state ordinances. And so it's very important to be aware of these situations because, not being well versed in what is expected by OSHA or by your local or state ordinances could result in fines, both for ourselves and any of our customers. And so, we just make sure that we're very well versed in the markets that we service so that we know exactly what's expected of us. And as far as fall risks go, that's always going to be a concern when you're talking about window washing. And so we make sure, we follow OSHA standards. Inspections are done daily. There are all of your equipment, any roof equipment needs to be inspected by an outside inspector, an OSHA inspector, at least once a year. And then, something you might not be familiar with is prior to the use of some equipment, it needs to be inspected no more than 30 days before it's used. And so that's another one of those kind of niche details that we're familiar with, where you might be, you might not be certain of that. And if you pull, or if you do an inspection too soon, you're going to have to go back and re-inspect that equipment.
And being what Sarah said is very important, so it's we're talking basically in reference to training, okay? Safety, number one priority. These things, and probably some locations she's at, the weather affects a lot of these high reach locations that have to be clean. So it's very dangerous and should be really number one priority in everyone's mindset when they're sending anyone up there for safety.
Let's talk landscaping. So everyone has some sort of landscaping, from lawns to plants. What are some of people's biggest needs, and how can the people who are watching, what are some tips that they can accommodate some of these needs? And what are some common mistakes that they can avoid? I'll start with you, Sarah.
Sure. So definitely the majority of our business on the landscaping side is in that routine maintenance, the mowing of the lawns, the watering, all of that kind of stuff, tree trimming. We also do a little work in irrigation consultation as well as landscape design, but the majority is in that routine maintenance. And so one of the ways that we make sure that we can accommodate our customers is making sure that we've been able to staff properly. And that really kind of boils down to two different things. being able to provide the labor, which means we have to make sure when we're bidding out a project that we're accounting for proper wages so that we can hire for those positions. And also making sure that there's enough time in that budget to complete the work that's being requested of us.
Okay. And Marcella?
Well, this is kind of a tricky area with the landscaping, being that just like the window washing, majority of the states go through different weather elements and affects people differently. On our side here, I could speak most for Florida, tapping into my landscaping division guys that are out there every day, and they was able to give me some feedback. You know, that some of the stuff is the heat, the intense sunlight affects all the vegetations as well, right? So excessive rainfall, we have been having that recently, and that affects a lot of their runoffs and drainage situations that they have to manage better. Storm, we just had the storm and hurricane, not good for anyone, that situation. That affects plenty of the vegetations, the grass, the surrounding areas, the trees, plus also adds another element which affects most of the stuff down here in Florida, which is pests and diseases for the trees and the landscape in itself. So a lot of it, we have some challenges. We do a lot of runoffs and drainage situations. At least South Florida here is doesn't have the best of how you call it, a sewer system or a runoff for water. Everything was marshland here originally. Another big item that they're dealing with a lot is also same situation we have with the salt coming in from the ocean and affecting a lot of our vegetation.
Off of what Marcelo is saying, you know, one of the most common mistakes that is made is in designing landscaping sometimes. You know, there's too much focus on the aesthetic versus the functionality. And so you kind of want to make sure that you're focusing on a design concept that actually works for, you know, where you're located. So you're not getting, you know, these kind of mishaps with your vegetation.
So kind of like more native plants and such, rather than maybe something that needs high water in like a desert area. So,
right.
Okay. So, all right, moving along. So, another thing that some people might think is colorful, but you want to avoid is getting rid of that unwanted art. So, we'll start with you, Marcella. Do you ever have any problems with graffiti? And if so, what?
Oh, yes.
How do you get rid of it? So,
I mean, we're having so many people running through the building on average, or outside events that we host, you know, between 50 to 100,000 people. Doesn't get as beat up as you know, a lot of municipalities do, right? And private spaces. I think the other day we were joking about my old days of riding the New York City subway. It was completely graffitied. So there's a lot of challenges with that. There's, you know, a lot of new items out there it's greener and safer. Most of the stuff items that you want to use to remove these things depends how embedded and how deep it is. It's you really need to wear your PPE, so a lot of protective gear. Take a consideration before you're utilizing stuff to take these out. There's a lot of newer modern techniques, ice blasting. What else did I have? That did some pressure washing helps a lot. And trying to use as much as you can. Start with the cleaner solvents, less damaging to the facade, the place itself, plus any of your staff members.
Okay. Sarah?
Yeah, I agree with Marcelo, and you know, we obviously of the same mind. Safety is always important because basically any of these pre-treatments that you use to help remove graffiti, you know, it's basically paint remover is what it is. And so it can, you know, burn the skin. It's a noxious chemical. So safety is #1 priority, but typically, you know, something that's kind of deep down in there does need the pre-treatment as well as the pressure washing. And then as far as trying to discourage graffiti, that's a little bit more of a challenge. And, you know, there are some sealants that you can put on exterior surfaces to make it easier to remove. However, of course, that doesn't that doesn't combat the initial problem of how do you keep people from actually graffitiing your building. There's also some textured surfaces that you can utilize so that graffiti is less visible, especially like etching type graffiti. But as far as discouraging it, unless we can, ban spray paint, I don't think we have an option.
Okay.
I
Okay.
agree with Sarah. It's very tough, and the best method, like everything else that this webinar is about, is tackling these challenges at a smaller scale. So once it occurs, you try to eliminate that as quick as you can, because like everything else, it just becomes a disease. So the more someone that does graffiti sees it, then they add to it, pretty soon you'll have a whole neighborhood filled with it.
Okay. So kind of taking it down before other people say, hey, I'm going to do it too, is kind of key. Speed
Correct.
is the essence. So, all right. And any of our watchers, if you have any questions about graffiti or how you discourage it, please feel free to include in the chat. So next topic, please. Okay. So one common way to clean outside services facilities has been pressure washing. So Sarah, do you use pressure washing frequently in your facilities you care for? And have you found that some surfaces are good for pressure washing while others are not?
So we definitely do a lot of pressure washing. As far as surfaces that are or are not safe to pressure wash, it really kind of boils down to using the right PSI on that pressure washer and using the right nozzles to make sure that, you're not damaging that surface. So, like stucco is very fragile. So you have to adjust the pressure so that you're not ruining that stucco. But all exterior surfaces are safe to pressure wash. You just have to be careful, about that pressure. A couple other things that we kind of take a look at when we're doing a pressure washing job is, especially parking structures can be a little bit dangerous because you need to make sure that there's proper ventilation because it is somewhat enclosed. And so, that's one of the things that we've learned throughout the years is making sure that that ventilation system has been left on when we're doing the actual pressure washing, because most times those ventilation systems are turned off at night. And that's when we're doing the pressure washing, and that can cause carbon monoxide exposure. And then also making sure that you're doing pressure washing at the correct time of day, right? So especially in the cities, we need to make sure that we're avoiding as much traffic as possible. And so we want to do pressure washing early in the morning on the exterior of buildings that we service to make sure that we're, avoiding any risks of the public.
Okay. All right. Marcelo?
Similar here, we do a pressure washing throughout all of our perimeters, the buildings, the rooftops, and many of the components Sarah mentioned. It's you got to do it timely. Sometimes you don't want to work in 110 degrees, so you got to kind of schedule the staff around. They'll come in 5 a.m. or late in the afternoon to try to fight off with the weather and or any other elements. Another important point is, as she mentioned, the carbon monoxide. Make sure you walk your locations first. If you're with a client or you do your own thing, get a scope of what you're really doing. Try to understand it. Equipment is very important, right? So there's various types of equipment. You can have diesel, gas. You can have electric nowadays for pressure washers. And as she had mentioned, some of the surfaces are much more delicate than others. So that's why they have different types of tips for most of the pressure washers, which will range on the fan of the water and how it comes out of it. And most of the pressure washers will have a regulator on it to adjust its pressure going in and out of it. These are very important elements. Safety in this one is very highly recommended. Some of these machines are 4,000 or 5,000 psi. You do not want to run that over your shoe or your finger. You'll definitely have plenty of damage to your body with that, and you want to prevent that kind of stuff. So again, training, techniques. There's various techniques for pressure washing. There's various tools to use in different elements, right? Sometimes you might be using something that's got a garage in oil. You want to be able to figure out how to get that removed first. There's surface machines you can use, other machines for the walls. You can use different types of machines. So it's really good to do your research first, see what you're dealing with, and then work with that. There's many products out there that are new as well. So if you have a customer or a client, there are surfaces you can clean and provide this a lot of new technology. You'll spray on something that restores or maintains the surfaces, and it works on the weather elements between the sun and the rain, and it keeps re-cleaning your surfaces for a longer period of time.
Okay. And then I assume with with any equipment, PPE is always crucial with pressure washers. So
Very important.
okay. So at a minimum, what should they be wearing for PPE at a minimum? So
Definitely goggles, some kind of hearing piece that they have, could be headsets or something smaller. Anything that, pants is better to protect because a lot of these things chip off the floors and whatnot. So the proper clothing will help. Gloves, these pressure washers at high PSI takes a toll on your hands and your body. So it's better to have anything that's a resource that can help the employee or the person doing it. It's good to be aware of it, all the needs and proper equipment you need.
all right. Thank you. We'll move on to the next topic. All right. So we've got then there's just the regular exterior like roofs and walls. Do you have preventative maintenance strategies for keeping up the outside parts of your facility, exterior walls, roofs, and how do you protect against environmental factors like storms? Marcelo, I think you said this was a big topic for you.
Yeah, we have various situations we deal with here. Thank God the icicles are not one of them for now. But basically, so all exteriors of buildings and rooftops, there's so many elements that affect it, be it, airplanes going by. It affects if it's in a traffic area that your rooftop will get a lot of sediment from that. Different weather in locations, of course, then with being in a colder place, you deal with snow. We got mostly the sun and the rain, which kind of bakes a lot of stuff into facades and roofs. So there's different preventive maintenance for each of those locations between the roof and the facade. But like everything else, it's frequency, understanding your metrics and timelines in this. Everything works off a time period. So if it's every 4 months, every 3 months, you have enough of as makes sense of like some salt water that affects and builds up on the facades or roof. We have a big challenge here. We have a lot of oxidation in places here. I think being not too far from the ocean, and then as well with the weather that we get here, it affects we had a lot of rust locations and build up. Once again with this, so it's pressure washing, it's cleaning your facade more frequently so it don't build up. And as well with the sidewalk and the pressure washing, there's a lot of new components and element being produced every year right now. I think Purdue University's got a paint that helps, a white paint that protects 95% of the sunlight and cools off your facility inside. Some new type of paint that they're producing or have produced. This will help you with any of your facilities on upkeep on temperature controls as well as sun reflection. Same thing with coating protectors. You can put some coating protectors that work off the weather elements. There's new technologies in science, and that will keep the side of your walls and your roof cleaner longer from buildup of algae and any mold as well.
Okay. And Sarah, is this a topic that your service would handle, or is this more something that's contracted for you?
Yeah, so for the protection and that type of thing, that's really something that we would subcontract out and work with some of our other partners to discuss those type of details. The majority of the work we would do is just in that cleanup, that pressure washing of the roof. cleaning out the gutters, making sure that those drainage systems are working properly so that you're not getting excess water buildup on the roof. Especially out here, you know, we get rain so infrequently that, you know, something like that can really come as quite a shock. This last year when we had all of those rainstorms, you know, everybody was calling us with, you know, roof leaking problems because, you know, it is so infrequent that we get that type of weather.
Okay. So keeping up with gutters and draining systems would be key for both of those. So,
Yeah.
Okay, we come to sidewalks and parking lots, which also is a big topic. What are some of the challenges in maintaining sidewalks, driveways, and parking lots? And what would you say are your client or facility visitor expectations for these areas?
Yeah, so you know, the client visitor expectations are always going to be high in those areas, right? Because that's even before you hit the lobby, that's going to be your first impression of any facility. And so, you know, our recommendation always is if it's a high traffic area, you know, you've got that day porter to be servicing that parking lot, making sure that they're sweeping through, picking up garbage. You know, we've had facilities, manufacturing facilities, especially when there's that first, second, third shift that come through, there's high traffic all day, every day. And those parking lots can get extremely littered very quickly. So, you know, having that staff to actually maintain that and make sure that it's, you know, that the visual of your exterior facility is as impressive as possible is definitely key to that. As far as parking lot maintenance and driveways and sidewalks, that's a service that, you know, DMS partners with others to help provide lot sweeping. You know, there are smaller sites where we can utilize our equipment to do that parking lot maintenance, but most facilities, you know, you really need that larger equipment to come in and sweep out those lots.
And Marcelo, so what would you have to add?
It's Sarah explained basically she covers all the good grounds on this one, and it is your first visual between the landscape and of someone pulling up to your facility or your home. There's a lot of challenges, like mostly with this picture is up north or with the snow, with safety and how much that damages the concretes and walkways tremendously more than out here in the Florida side. But we have the same situations with the water. Another big issue with it is it's safety, right? So we have people, we patrol every day the perimeter outside and inside of our lots, and we have a safety committee here. So our gentlemen that do that get back to us so we can report it, that's uneven surfaces or something's wrong with on the landscaping side, if there's manholes off or a missing piece of the sidewalk, which can be a hazard to anyone trying to come into that property, and then which leads to other issues, of course, and challenges. But we do pressure washing out there. Same thing here with this these spaces and areas we're trying to cover between lots and this that's exposed to the sun and the weather elements. There's a lot of new technologies also that you can lay down in this, which helps maintain the visual and self-cleans some of these sidewalks.
All right. So unless there's something to add, we can move along. We listed some very specific things, but there might be miscellaneous maintenance tasks that have not come up. We'll start with you, Marcella. What are some things that we haven't already discussed that come up for exterior maintenance for your facility? And do you think you have any tasks that are unique to your facilities?
I think just off this pitch itself, I could see some issues here. So you got some dark areas, so you can get, depends on the moisture, get mold and mildew, algae buildup. A lot of the corners and windows are famous for attracting pests. So you have spiders and other pests that build up and nest in locations. This is where the patrolling and having a good routine to be able to catch these things as they build up before they develop into something major, and it is a lot more costly for a facility owner and the facility place. As well as we have situations, I have a lot of challenges here. We have hard water here in our area, so it's a lot of it we get rust buildup, be it off the irrigation water. We had to put some filters in some locations just to try to maintain and control it a little bit. So you got to constantly patrol for that, where you'll get rust buildup in various locations.
Okay. So, and Sarah?
Yeah, and one of our big ones is metal care. So there's a lot of metal care on your facilities where there's not a ton of it. It's maybe not something that you think about all the time. But if you're not caring for that metal and, you know, maintaining it at least on a yearly basis, then you run the risk of rust, pitting, you know, those type of situations, calcium deposits. And so that needs to be cared for as well.
I think this is most of our planned questions. We have some questions that have come up from the audience. I'm going to introduce Elizabeth Christensen, my colleague and editor. She is going to ask some of the questions that have come up from our watchers.
We got a great question that came in here. Have you found anything to clean or fill in etching on mirrors?
We clean, basically clean off graffitis, writings, or simple stuff off of it. A lot of the mirrors are tricky because it's a lot of this stuff is done internally between between the two finishers, or when they put something on the platform, and some of them got space in between, or they got gas to get air in them and affects them, but nothing for actual scratching or etching them.
Yeah, I agree on that. The mirrors are definitely a difficult one with the different layers in there, and not to my knowledge have we found something to kind of fill in that etching.
Okay. Another question here then, what are some best practices for cleaning bird excrement on paved areas and other surfaces?
Oh, that I get plenty.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's you know, the best practices could be a hose, but pressure washing depends on your surface. You can use depends on your facility. If you got a walk behind scrubber, ride on scrubber, anything that reduces a little bit of pressure on it just to eliminate it, and then may be able to push it to a drain. The preventive method for that is best. Usually if you're having a situation, depends on your location as well, is if it's consistent, that means there's a nest above you. So you kind of got to deal with trying to remove the nest and replacing it somewhere else, or after a long period of time enough that they just disappear and relocate.
Okay.
But it's an ongoing battle. There is some preventive stuff you can put, depends on the pipes. You can put things for them not to settle on and rest on it. There's everything from spikes to some stuff's called hot feet, anything just to deter them from coming from that area. But it's an ongoing situation and challenge over here with us.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I know we had, it is kind of about the preventative, trying to, you know, relocate those types of, you know, animals that are excreting all over the place. We had a situation, you know, last year with one of the facilities that we do actually the window washing for, where they were having that similar issue. You know, they just got their windows cleaned, and they had crows that like to nest all over the top of the facility. And so they had to figure out a way to get rid of those crows before they could call us back to, you know, redo the job, because they knew if we did it again, it was just going to wind up the same, you know, in a couple of weeks. So
what are some remedies to remove stubborn mold from outside walls?
Okay, that one's so it depends on the surfaces. Some are a lot easier. Mold is not that difficult to remove. If you've got a solid surface, glass, it's the wipe of it. If you have a surface that is porous, or most of the people will deal with it in their showers at houses because of the drywall. So this absorbs it in. So also there's a lot of new technology, safer stuff that you can spray and basically walk away, and it eats up most of the molds and reduces the bacteria and the growth of it. The other methods, of course, is spraying something and using some elbow grease. And there are preventive items that you can add to it. If it keeps resurfacing, that means you have a moisture situation and there's no sunlight there. So this enhances the growth of them. So that would be maybe having to look into a little deeper, cut out a wall or something else of that source. Once you treat the mold or you remove it as well, you can use, there's machines like ozone, the bipolymerization machines. There's items you can put there to help increase the air quality and reduce those spores in most of those rooms. So there's a lot of technology there that can assist. And if you're in the outside exterior, you can just pressure wash it off as well. It comes off pretty easy. Make sure you're wearing a mask and protective gear, and you got gloves on as well, because you don't want these to touch these things and have them get a hold of you.
Sarah,
Yeah,
did you have-
definitely. I think that the problem with mold comes more on the interior versus the exterior. The exterior, usually you can, find a reasonable method of removing that mold, without, because it, like Marcelo said, it's not seeping into that drywall. You're not really worrying about that risk of, it's kind of continuing to grow and everything like that. It's more that initial removal. And, once you've got that under control, as long as there isn't some other source for that mold, the problem is taken care of.
So what is the best method to maintain the cleanliness of rough tiles that are very difficult to clean?
Right. So, the first thing is definitely you want to make sure that your frequencies are on schedule, because if too much time accumulates and too much dirt and grime, it becomes harder and harder to first off clean those and then maintain them. The other thing is definitely using the correct sealants. So, we use different sealants for exterior versus interior. You also want to make sure that your grout is sealed, so that, that kind of helps that dirt from seeping into the grout. But using a darker colored grout in exterior is definitely recommended, because it's much harder to see than that visible dirt.
Yes, Sarah mentioned, so there's different finishes you can put on the tiles. Well, to go to the basics of it, if they're having a rough tiles, any rough surface tiles they have, it's the frequency, upkeep. The more they clean it, the better it is for them. If it's rough tiles, usually want to use more of a brush method process on it, so you can get in the grooves a little bit. If it does get away from them, that means they would have to do a deep clean into it. That would take a lot longer, but the method would work. So her suggestions are great. You can do a great cleaning, get the grout clean, put some kind of sealants or coatings on them. That buys you some time, depends on the coatings you use, and it'll be easier to maintain. Also, if you're going to put any coatings on tiles and you're doing a clean that tiles, make sure you have you can check for slip efficiency on it, because you don't want to put something on a client outside their main entrance and it's super slippery, and the moisture it won't end well for everybody, right? There'll be a lot of challenges there, and there'll be legal processes to go through with that. So make sure you do your research. Some places can take sealant better than other. Some just not recommended at all. It's just more of a routine and a system that you can build up to clean it, to maintain it in good condition.
Okay. And I'm hoping you guys can talk to this one. What are the environmental issues in pressure washing grease and fat from restaurant and grill patios onto the curb and street? Are there legal concerns with that? I don't know if we want to talk about legal issues, but I don't know if either of you guys tackle that area.
Right. I don't want to touch on the legal aspect of it, but yeah, definitely there are the environmental factors that need to be considered, and that's why you want to be sure that you're, if you're not familiar with what you need to do, you should really be using an outside source to do that work, because we are familiar with, you know, the water reclamation practices. We're familiar with disposal methods for any type of, you know, grease that comes out of it. So you really want to be careful not to venture down, you know, a path that you are not familiar with.
Yes, Sarah said that's you gotta know your environmental needs, and this is a kind of a tough question to answer because it's not describing the amount of grease and oil, right? So if it's an outside location, they can build some. You can build little reservoirs to pressure wash it to, and you clean it. You can add enzymes into that, which the enzymes eat the grease, and it reduces the load of it. But most of it, if it's something just exposed, it'll be similar to your driveway or an outside exterior. If something is just on the surface, you can pressure wash it and it'll go to the sewer system. I don't ever recommend anybody trying to dump 5 gallons of grease anywhere, and not in your house, not in your facility, not in any of your drains. This is a bad effect to that, and it causes a lot of damage to the pipes and also to residuals of wherever that stands on. So basically, just you can use an enzyme. There's a lot of new technology that reduces the load of it, and then you can pressure wash it, or also just pressure wash into something that you can collect in it, and then dispose it in a different manner. There's companies that remove grease or locations that accept it as well.
Okay, I think great tips from both of you on that. Okay, so this one is specifically about marble. Okay, so what is the best daily routine for marble floors, cleaning and maintenance in high traffic areas? So the best daily routine for marble floors, cleaning and maintenance in high traffic areas. Can either one of you talk to about marble?
You want me to start? Yeah, marble is a little tricky. Also, components of finishes on that. Marble is without a finish is very porous and absorbent. Again, routine cleaning. You know, you want to dust mop that first most of the time. You can use a scrubber, neutral cleaners on it. Depends on there's tons of companies that make different coatings and finishes for that. So usually if they have a method that you go with one company and there's their method of sealing, you want to kind of use their preventive maintenance behind that, right? So it could be using a particular shine pad and just a neutral cleaner on a daily basis. And so it's all driven towards, depends what product to use on it, but the most important is just make sure you dust mop it or do a top clean constantly on it and maintain it from getting the buildup. Remember, most of this scratches that happen to any interiors or all the residue and things that we bring from outside our elements. So maybe carpeting and matting outside and some inside will help them maintain their marble and any hard floors they have. Or if they have elevators, they can build a runner going to the elevator so that most of the traffic is running through those runners and not being walked over their tiles or their marble.
Right. And I think, you know, to Marcelo's point, again, it is about the regularly scheduled maintenance of this type of flooring. And so you just want to make sure that there is that proper schedule of maintenance for it. You know, a lot of times it does tend to be buffed more frequently than other surfaces because they want that high buff shine. And so, you know, I mean, it's a different pad that we're using to do that, so you're not damaging the finish, but it brings out that shine and gives that luster that everybody's looking for with those marble finishes.
Okay. So I know Marcelo talked about this a little bit, but what is the best way to get rid of hard water on windows? I think you said you had to deal with hard water a little bit, Marcelo.
Correct. So there's a couple of different technologies out there. There's even products that you can put after you clean a window, which works off the sun as well, and actually enhances air quality and other surfaces. They can do the research on that. You can use some, you know, a lot of people like using the dishwashing soap. There's things for hard water deposit. Or they got that one called Barkeepers, helps a lot, depends on how bad it is and where it's built up. CLR sometimes help, you know, that's calcium lime removal. There's different items there that they can pick up at the regular Home Depot, Lowe's, wherever it is, and they would have to test it in their environment a little bit, being the cold weather is a little different than other locations. But it's a little bit of trial and error. And once they find the product, then they should constantly utilize that. They can also, just like everything else with sealants, glass has coating protectors you can put on it, and it'll help. It'll prevent it from reoccurring as frequently. It'll just buy you some more time.
Okay. This question came in. What are factors that play into using an outside contractor versus researching and training an employee to deal with the same particular scenario?
Sarah?
So I would say, there's definitely less on the risk side for you using an outside contractor. When you use an outside contractor, that is, particularly our service. And so we are very well versed in all of the, proper procedures, the safety protocols, all of that kind of stuff. We have safety programs in place to help make sure that we're not, running into risky situations, and, training our employees on how to prevent any situation that may cause them risk. And so, that's probably one of the biggest reasons why we get people who hire out our services versus trying to do something in-house. Either they can't train the people to do it, or they don't want to take on that risk of, if they're improperly trained, what could happen to that employee.
Right.
Yeah, so there's I deal with that on both sides. So first and foremost, if it's a company and a business, they should look into, there's plenty of resources online, and ISSA and SIMS and everyone, they should be able to get their resources and training on different methods of what they're trying to get, from if they're building something out as a floor cleaner or a floor tech or a carpet tech, as well as, just to be transparent, if they bring a contractor in and they have a staff and you see the methods they use, and it's something you can educate and safely provide to your staff and the facility that you run, that's perfectly fine as well. So you got to be able to make sure that you can understand what the scope of work is and what they're trying to do. And if it's something that they can integrate from learning from who they brought in and they saw how it was done, and they have the equipment and they have the resources, and then taking that to the next level is training those individual through other resources if they don't have the full understanding of it, and integrating both what they saw how it was done, and then having their method of finding a place that the person can be trained well enough, and then from there, of course, utilizing their best practices that they can use both entities and enhance their staffing levels and their understanding of the jobs and functions they got to do.
Okay. How important is exterior lighting maintenance? So I know as the days are getting shorter here, this is probably a pretty big deal. Okay, do you struggle with that and safety measures for nighttime security?
Sarah?
Yeah, so I mean, we definitely do struggle with lighting. Lighting is always going to be on the top of our priority for safety, especially, there's a very large portion of our business that is janitorial work. And so we're sending crews out at night, and they're walking the facilities, and they're out in that exterior. And with improper lighting, our risk goes way up, because not only, could there be cracks in the sidewalk or, something, a tripping hazard for them, but also, you're exposed to the public. And so, that's always going to be a risk for our employees out there. So we do place a high priority on that. Of course, that's a little bit out of our control, because you likely have somebody, as far as parking lot lights go, you probably have somebody else that's servicing those parking lot lights. What we do try and help control by notifying our customers is the the exterior lights around a building and making sure that those notifications are made in a timely manner so that we have as much lighting as we can work with.
Okay.
That's correct. The Sarah tapped in some good points there. So the lighting is efficient. You need to have efficient lighting. It's very important. It's no different than somebody walking around or going to a facility and having Wayfinder, right? So you know which way to go, what office you're trying to get to. So it's vital. Also, it's an important function on the safety side, because you know there's people going out there besides slip and falls. Also, safety for safer for the pedestrians and any person coming in and out of a facility or walking through a school campus or a parking lot. Any extra lighting that's there is going to help you just to be aware and know your surroundings better. So which is just in case to ward off people and strangers as well, because there's more lighting in the facility.
Okay. This one's very specific, and I don't know how specific you want to go, but someone is looking for recommendations on good cleaning chemicals for rough tiles that does not cause rust on metal surfaces around the edges of the walls.
If they want to provide their email address, I'll get a list together.
Okay. All right. Perfect.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of biodegradable things that work nowadays too. Again, that they can use, and it won't cause no harm to any rust or any metals. There's a lot of different options out there, but they can, like I said, they can reach out and we can give them some information, or Sarah as well.
Okay. So I know Marcella talked about this too. What are the most often ignored safety practices you cringe at? And is there anything else, either one of you, that both make you nervous when you see an employee doing that?
You want to go first, Marcelo?
Go ahead. Yeah. So, you know, there's tons of situations and scenarios with different components that are very scary to think about, right? So I think most of everyone here has, it's, you know, the cell phone distraction, right? If you're working a boom or operating some heavy equipment or even walking around and without lighting, you end up stepping in a hole or something, that occurs. So that's a big one. We conversate about that at all. You know, try to be at a standstill or something. If you got to take a call, if you want to, or if you're being reached even by radio, don't be in motion and try to do 2-3 things. We don't want people multitasking on a rappelling chair from the 30th floor. So there's other issues is constant distractions, right? Know your protocols for your safety. Be aware of your surroundings, most important, right? Because there's other people around, or there's structures that are around that you might not be focusing on or paid attention in your route, and all of a sudden you hit a bridge or something else. So it's a lot of these components of try to be in the right mindset and concentrate on your surroundings in the work area.
Yeah, and the only other one I would add is definitely not practicing proper lockout tagout procedures is a cringeworthy action item.
Okay, so then I know I'm in the Midwest here and we're heading into winter, but what is some of the best ways to keep your glass looking healthy throughout the whole entire year?
Again, I think it's, having your glass serviced on a regular basis. And so a lot of this kind of boils down to that preventative maintenance. You don't want to wait until your windows look horrible before you're, calling somebody out to do the work.
Right.
Okay. And
correct. And then there's also look at the, it depends. Like if you're in the colder element than our hotter element, there are things out there that you can put to protect and buy you some time between cleanings, and these products do work. There's kind of like sealants for floor, there's sealants for glass, and they'll prevent the residual from sticking to, or things run off a little better. Some of them reduce condensation buildups and all. And although that will help you on the cleaning, right? Because the condensation, any water bubbles that are in glass and whatnot, with all the dirt and particles that are in the air, that's what attacks to it. And then once that dry, that's how you see that you have like almost a dirty, dusty window in glass.
Okay. And we had a similar question. Let's make this our last question. Someone also wanted to know about keeping grass looking good. So in addition to glass, so, and then we will close up.
Grass is, definitely, again, it's that regular maintenance, and it's also the right watering schedule. So you want to make sure that you're watering at a time where you're not going to get a lot of burnout. And you also want to make sure that you're not overwatering.
Yeah, your soil is very important in that aspect of it, right? So it's either too much water or too much sun. So you have to kind of monitor it. A lot tougher for people up north or in the winters, of course. I mean, I'm pretty sure not most of you, a lot of stadiums have grow lights they put there to maintain the grass green, but it's not a cheap option. So you can buy some time as well. You do some research on it, but most importantly, like Sarah said, is try to find where your daylight is and sun hitting those particular locations, and that will help you maintain your vegetation better altogether.
Yeah, and one last point to that is also, make sure that watering does occur when somebody is around, to make sure that you're able to check those sprinkler heads. It's a lot easier to see some sort of a leak while the sprinklers are running. And so, it is a good practice to at least have one of your watering cycles when somebody's there to check those sprinkler heads.
All right. All right. I would like to thank our panelists for their time this afternoon. We appreciate everyone signing up for our webinar and watching it, and we will make a recording available within a few days. So thank you so much. And if you have any other questions for the panelists, feel free to email me. It's Kathleen with a K @issa.com. Thank you, everyone, and we will be ending the webinar.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Martha. You guys were great. Appreciate it. Sarah, your sign in the back, the sunshine kept me focusing on that all day long.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Everyone have a great day. Any questions you have or need any assistance with, just feel free to send it into the webinar.